Moving on, India is fast moving towards its $5 trillion economic goal. And innovation and digital reinvention are at the core of achieving this trillion-dollar dream. Legacy and new age businesses reflect promising growth. In fact, if you look at the unicorn numbers from the start of the year, around 110 new unicorns emerged just in the first quarter of 2022. Of that, 56% came from the United States, followed by India at 12%. Despite the pandemic and many hurdles, it is tech and innovation that has helped businesses under towering leaderships to not only sustain, but emerge taller and stronger. As leaders rewrite their organization's playbook, realign strategies with people-first approach, the tech pioneers continue to evolve and support them to ensure tangible outcomes continue. AWS has been a pioneer in the space of cloud and technology and has been aligning their products and solutions to digitally empower businesses and aid in India's digital mission. Join me to deliberate this journey of reinvention, building for tomorrow, are the technocrats from AWS. Phil Davis, Managing Director, APJ AWS, and Puneet Chandok, President, India and South Asia of AISPL. Phil, Puneet, if I could have you both on the stage. Very high bar. I hope you're ready.
I hope so too.
Well, before we get talking about all these tech buzzwords, and we're going to hear a lot about it, right? Cloud, agile, digital, innovation, reinvention, transformation. Just to, a little bit of an icebreaker, get to know both of you all a little bit more. Phil, is this your first visit to India?
I think that's kind of a planted question. No, actually, I lived in Singapore for about 10 years and would come here once a quarter. So I think I'm closer to a half century than to a first trip.
Okay, so first post the COVID? No?
Pardon me? Yes, post-COVID, that's right. So I think it's first trip in almost 3 years.
So we got something right.
Yeah, exactly.
Just shrink the time horizon a little bit more. Okay. Another planted question. Your favorite book?
It's interesting. I was part of the Male Champions of Change, which looks like gender inclusion and equity. And they recommended we read a book called Women, Men, and the Whole Damn Thing. And it talks about gender bias and unconscious bias all through history. And it was really provocative. And I just recently finished it. So that would be my favorite book today.
How did it help you in your journey, self-awareness, or as a leader?
I think one thing it does is it helps you look at unconscious bias from a different lens. And anything I think you could look at a problem or an opportunity through different perspectives, I think it helps you.
Okay, so you clearly like reading because in a busy schedule, you've managed to eke out time for reading. What else do you like to do in your free time? Is there something that you would like us to know so we get to know you a little bit better?
Well, when with COVID, everybody was spending a lot of time at home, so we bought a dog, and it's a little French bulldog. And so one of my favorite things to do is actually take the dog for a walk and kind of step out of the office. And that's usually when Puneet and I do our one-on-ones is when I'm walking. His name's Eddie.
Eddie. And how old is he now?
He's probably about 18, 19 months. We got him
COVID
in
born.
August of 20.
Okay, he's a COVID baby then.
That's exactly.
Okay, Puneet, you like tennis a lot, right? Why do you gravitate towards tennis? Indians are all fans of cricket. And who's your favorite tennis player?
I would like to say because I'm good at it, but that'll be a statement too far. Lots of favorite players here. I don't want to start a debate on the greatest of all time, but for me it's Federer. He's a bit like Metallica and Mozart together on the tennis court, a bit like Banaras Gharana. He's an incredible fusion. I also like Martina Navratilova a lot. Besides her tennis, I think she was just incredible outside the court and everything she said. And I'll tell you my favorite story about Martina. She was interviewed once, and she was asked a question saying, at 43 years of age, Martina, how do you hit the ball so well? How are you so fit? How are you hitting the ball? And she thought about it for a minute, and she said, you know what? The ball doesn't know how old I am. The ball doesn't know how old I am. And that's my mantra on the court when I'm playing with people who are half my age. The ball doesn't know how old I am, so I'm going to hit that ball.
Fantastic. And what about your favorite book?
Again, lots of books. I'm going to read this one, Phil. This one I haven't read. But there's a recent book that I read which is called The Language for Life, Nonviolent Communication. It's a beautiful book. It's about every time you're judging somebody or you're judging yourself, it's usually an unmet need that's coming out. And we've all lost the vocabulary to express our needs and clarify what we want from life. So it's an incredible book, and I really highly recommend that.
Absolutely fantastic. And just to add, my favorite book, and I think it keeps changing depending on the context that you're in. Currently, it's Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. I think it was fantastic for someone who's getting into motherhood and just navigating the entire journey as a working professional and a mother. But anyway, getting back to brass tacks, talking about business. Phil, before you joined AWS as the MD of the Asia Pacific business, you were leading the global hybrid business for HP. You were managing $20 billion in revenue, right? A lot of the people that we have here today, they're leaders, and they're looking to expand, right? New geographies, whether it's organically or via acquisitions. You've got an experience across geographies, multi-cultures. What would your advice be?
You know, I think there's probably two things that come to mind. You know, number one, particularly as you look to go into new geographies, really, really make sure you understand the customer nuances. Because I've seen a number of people try to take the exact same service or solution they have in their home country and take it, and there's a slightly different regulation or there's a slightly different customer need. So I see that it misses the market window. And there was a saying, you know, meeting 95% of the customer needs, does that mean you meet 95% of all customers, in which case you meet none, or you meet the 95% 100%, right? And there's a big difference between the two. I think the second thing, particularly as you think about expanding, is it's better to do fewer things very, very well versus try to do everything. And not so much at HPE, but I was also at a startup. I was at one that went public. I was at a couple that got bought, but I was at one that failed. And I think what we got wrong, or what I got wrong, was we tried to kind of blanket all of the U.S. too fast, too quickly, and we would have been better off picking very specific industry verticals or very specific geographies and doing a great job there and then building the business versus spreading our capital too thin.
I guess that's the mantra that you apply when you recommend or advise your clients when it comes to digital transformation as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we do see some digital transformation projects become challenged because people are trying to change everything. You're better off to pick the highest impact things, work backwards from what you're trying to accomplish, and then, you know, focus on those versus, you know, boiling the ocean. Absolutely.
All right. A word we're going to hear very often is COVID, right? Before COVID and after COVID. And COVID has changed everything for us. Life is not going to be the same as it was. But it's really been an inflection point when it comes to digital and everything digital, right? Businesses are rebuilding their supply chain. We've got hybrid working environment. Some of us could be heading to Goa tomorrow and working at the beaches for all you know, right? Can you talk about the trends which are here to stay?
Yeah, I think when I talk to customers, there's kind of three key things that come out very, very clearly. I think customers are trying to figure out, how do I future-proof my business? And Cropman's a great example, right? I may not know what the climate's going to be. How do I better predict that and make, you know, better decisions now for a highly volatile? And the worst pandemic in over 100 years is a pretty volatile situation, right? And so customers are trying to figure out how they take out costs, how they get more agile. I think the second thing is people are trying to innovate much more quickly, see opportunities, bring new capabilities. And, you know, Paytm's a great customer and partner of ours. And you think about their solution, Soundbox, right? Once again, merchants, vendors wanted to be able, shop owners wanted to know when the payment actually hits their account. And so being able to quickly innovate on AWS to bring that to market very quickly was a huge differentiator for them. And I think the third one is skills. Look, the skills you needed even 4 or 5 years ago are very different. Skills to manage an on-premises environment versus digital skills or artificial intelligence or ML. And I think that what you're going to see is there's going to be a gap on skills for the very foreseeable future. And so you look at like what we're doing with Techcom Bank in Vietnam, where we're working on a very specific custom skills development program to train over 2,000 of their teams. And I think that's going to be kind of a really important trend for the foreseeable future as well.
The great resignation. Puneet, zooming in on India in particular, right? India has always been the land of opportunity, but somehow we've not managed to capitalize on it in its entirety. But finally, India also appears to be at an inflection point. It's growing, businesses are growing, despite the structural challenges which are associated with India. What would your advice be to leaders as they ride the India growth wave?
It's a great question, and let me answer this in three parts, right? What's happening in India, the role of technology, and then some advice or ideas for folks in the room. On India, I often quote Ruchir Sharma, one of my favorite authors, and he says something about India which is really interesting. He says, India is a country that's consistently disappointed both the optimist and the pessimist. We've consistently disappointed both of them, but that's starting to change now, right? There is, even in this room, right, there's a different energy. And you go and meet people, we've met 5 or 6 customers today, there's a different level of energy. You can almost feel a new India emerging, and there's a lot going on in India, right? Half our population is less than 25 years of age. Every second person has access to internet. We've got 5 million developers. The most amount of computer science graduates are coming out of this country. The 3 digital infrastructure highways, Aadhaar, Jan Dhan, Mobile, 75 million SMBs. Quite honestly, there isn't a market like India today anywhere in the world. It's the largest market for technology companies to serve today. There isn't a market like India, and that just creates incredible opportunities. And that's where technology comes in, right? And you mentioned COVID, right? And I genuinely believe COVID was a dress rehearsal for the new world we're entering. It wasn't a one-time event. We're entering a world today which is more dynamic, more volatile, more uncertain than ever, and I don't think that's going to change. And that's where technology comes in, and that's where cloud comes in, that's where AWS comes in, and cloud reacts well to uncertainty. If you're truly trying to build agility, if you're trying to build for this new world, you need technology. And then the other thing that we're doing from a technology perspective is trying to simplify it, right, and democratize it. And for a country like India, democratizing technology is really important, and loved what you spoke about, Krishna, exactly what you're doing. Right? And then today, a student sitting in a cyber cafe in a small city in India can access as much compute, database, and storage as large organizations with multi-billion-dollar budgets and armies of people could do. Imagine the unlock in India. 1.3 billion Indians have access to that, right? And that's what the India of tomorrow is about. In terms of advice, I'll just give 3 tips. I don't think I can give a lot of advice. I think the first one is, and I'm going to quote a few people. I'm going to quote a customer who said, unlike wine, cheese, and art, antiquity doesn't raise the value of your digital assets. It doesn't, right? So if you're building for this agile world, if you're building for this new world, get rid of your legacy, get rid of your technical debt, because that would slow you down. And you don't want to slow down. And think big. Don't just dip your toes in the water when it comes to technology and cloud. Go big. Second, I'm going to quote an analyst who recently told me that, Puneet, there's no business strategy without cloud strategy. There is no business strategy today without cloud strategy, and cloud and technology are no longer on the periphery. It's not an afterthought after you build your business. That's what you're building your business on, right? And you need urgency, you need speed. You don't have a lot of time now, right? So how do you build that speed muscle over and over again? And my last tip or advice, as Phil said, is skilling. All of you lead large organizations. I'm sure you're skilling people at scale. But whatever number you have in mind in terms of people you want to train on technology and cloud, add a 0 behind it. That's the number you need. I'm going to quote Phil on this. He asked me a question over dinner the other night. When was the last time you did something for the first time? I'm going to change that quote a little bit, Phil. When was the last time you guys learned something for the first time? And I've learned this from Gunjan. Gunjan's right there. Incredible lifelong learner. But for all of you, I'd push you to think about how are you learning? How are you building new muscles? And then go do this across your organizations.
Absolutely, right? Digital transformation is no longer just about optimizing costs or driving efficiency. It's so much about driving revenues, profits, innovation, and building that muscle that a company, those building blocks that will take your company into the future, about becoming future-proof, crisis-resistant in a way. It's so much about that muscle, that building muscle that you spoke about. Since our theme for the day is digital reinvention, Puneet, Amazon prides itself on its innovation. That culture of innovation comes top-down, and it's rooted at, with every employee at Amazon. How do you manage to do that with a company which has so many employees?
I'll take a shot at this, and Phil, you should feel free to chip in. I'll tell you a story. When I joined Amazon AWS 3 years ago, I joined on Monday, and Monday night I flew into Seattle. And the next day I was sitting down with a few execs and trying to figure out what life would be at it. And Gunjan knows this story as well. And I was sitting with an exec and I asked him, what would success look like for me? So if I was to come back in a year and have lunch with you again, assuming I'll last a year, What would success look like? What would you measure me on? And he thought about it for a minute. He said, success for you, Puneet, is the number of experiments you and your team conduct. Success for you is the number of experiments you and your team conduct. And I was quite honestly expecting a number or a growth rate or a quota. But that's what our culture is all about, right? Our DNA is experiments. And we call this our day one culture, which is how do we preserve the heart of a startup in a large corporation, right? We're a large business, and by the way, large businesses are great, right? We've got resources, we've got scale, but we want to preserve the heart of a small business, right? And that's why I want to be day one. And the analogy I use is we want to be like a big boxer who can take a punch on its head, and we do get punches, but we also want to be nimble, right? We want to avoid a few punches when they come our way. So how do you do that? And day one is our operating model, is our mentality. And Jeff spoke about day one 20 years ago in his first shareholder letter. In fact, he said it's not even day one for us, it's the dawn of day one. The alarm clock hasn't gone off and we're just getting out of beds. And the way we do this is 2 or 3 things. It's a longer conversation, I'll keep it short. One is just true customer obsession. We want to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. Everything that we build at AWS and Amazon is driven by customers. 90% of AWS, and by the way, there's more innovation happening at AWS than anywhere else on the cloud, 200 plus services. 90% of what we are building is driven by customers, and we have a term called divine discontent at Amazon, which is customers are wonderfully, beautifully dissatisfied. Even when they report being happy, even when business is good, they're dissatisfied, and you have to invent on their behalf. So everything we do is customer-driven. Second is just the speed of decision-making, right? And our philosophy is you should take decisions with 70% of the information you wish you had. You should take decisions with 70% of the information you wish you had. If you're waiting for more, quite honestly, Krishna can say this better than I do. There's a machine who can take that decision better than you. So what kind of a leader are you, right? So how do you move fast? And we think about two-way door decisions and one-way door decisions. But really, and Phil says this quite often, ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I have a lot of forgiveness to ask, given what I'm doing. But we'll figure that out, separate conversation. And then third is this last piece around experiments. And I spoke about this already. But it's not enough to do experiments. You need the permission to fail, right? Because if you're asking your team to do experiments and you read them the riot act when they mess up, they're not going to experiment again. And we say this at Amazon, right? We want to be the world's best place for people to come and fail because that's how we learn. And if you have the ability, if you've got the intellectual humility to learn from it, then these experiments are not that expensive. But speed is something that comes out of this, right? So that's what we're trying to build. Feel free to add.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's a very culture-driven, right? Values-driven kind of approach. And so we've got our leadership principles that you alluded to, and they're very clear. And the behaviors associated with those are also very clear. And I think one of the things the company does to ensure that continues is really test for that very rigorously before we bring people on board. It's a lot easier to go down that journey together when you have shared values than when people are misaligned. And so I think that's another thing that we're very rigorous around on the front end is that cultural alignment.
Just one more thing. Phil said this and it sparked another idea in my mind, right? So I was quoting Jeff about customer obsession. Jeff also said something which is, he was asked once in a town hall, so you keep talking about day one, what does day two look like? And he thought about it for a minute. He said, day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by painful, excruciating death. And that's why it's always day one in Amazon. That's why it's always day one in Amazon. And that's ingrained into our culture. So it is always day one.
You know, it's easy to be innovative, to be agile when you're a small company, but Amazon has done that at scale. So kudos to, you know, the entire culture at Amazon and the leadership. And I totally agree, right? I think customer experiences and expectations have been set by Amazon. So now I expect my bank to deliver the same kind of services that I expect from Amazon over the last so many years. So you guys have done an absolutely fantastic job. Before we get the rest of the team in, you know, to talk more about, cloud and digital transformation, how do you balance work and life? You have a dog, Eddie.
Yes, I yell at Eddie. He helps me release my frustrations. Look, I think the thing, I think I do a better job as I'm older, is you have to draw boundaries. There's always going to be the next meeting or the next email or the next emergency or whatever it is. So for me, I tend to get up early and then make sure I shut off and try to spend time with family and do a better job of balancing things. I also find getting out in walking or being in nature is good for me from a balance. Yeah, very therapeutic from a balancing standpoint. So those are two things that happen to work for me.
Puneet?
No, I think Phil said this. And I always say this to my teams, right, which is Amazon is more than a job. It's our passion, but it's less than a life. So you got to have a life outside of work. Your identity has to be beyond Amazon. And the other thing I really believe in is that no amount of success at work is worth one failure at home. So don't let that happen. And Phil said it, right? Have rituals, whatever works for you. For me, it's tennis, swimming, playing PlayStation with my son, or reading with my daughter. But more than rituals, you got to have the courage to stick to them, right? Because if you're not standing up for them, nobody else will. So that's what I try and do.
Okay, thank you very much for those life lessons as well, apart from professional lessons. Now, India's GDP has shrunk by a whopping 40%, no, sorry, about 24.5% between April to June 2020. That's what the national income estimate suggests. However, in this recovery phase, technological interventions took center stage as enterprises around the globe witnessed revolutionary growth. So we'll talk more about that, but as we do that, let me also invite the rest of the panelists on the stage now. We've got Arun Parameshwaram, the MD in Sales Distribution at Salesforce. If I could get him on stage. Could we have some extra chairs too? Gunjan Samtani, Head of Goldman Sachs Services India. Neeraj Khandelwal, co-founder CoinTCX. Varun Agni, co-founder Bounce. Puneet, thank you very much for joining. Oh, there you are. We're not going to let you go before another quote. Okay, so technology has emerged as a great enabler, disruptor, and catalyst. It was incumbent upon CEOs to ensure that organizations are fully equipped with tools, solutions, and strategies for any sudden disruptions. This further imposed the necessity of creating a collaborative environment. In the post-pandemic world, leaders have established that rebuilding in this digitally empowered era demands innovation and resources that will help them in creating long-term success story. As you can see, I have with me an elite panel who are going to help us delve deeper into the nuances of this subject. We've got Ramneek Khurana as well, co-founder of Lenskart.com with us. All set?
All set.
All set. Okay. I think invariably all the discussions end up starting with COVID. So, Phil, I forgot to ask you actually earlier. What was your first reaction? Where were you when COVID struck us?
You know, it's interesting. I tend to be an optimist, so I was in the Bay Area when it first struck, and I can remember thinking at the time, you know, this will probably be over in a couple of months. And then a couple of months later, I'm thinking that should be over by the end of the year, and, you know, never would have predicted that.
Do you think it's over now?
Well, it depends what you mean by over, but it's good to be back to, you know, some sense of normalcy. It's interesting. I don't know if you ever read the book Good to Great, but they talk about the Stockdale paradox in there, right? Where you don't want to be so optimistic that everything's going to be great, but you don't want to be pessimistic. You're exactly, and that's kind of how I thought about COVID, right? It's going to be over, maybe not as quick as I wanted, but you just kind of had to grind through it. And even though it's not completely over, it is good to be back out and meeting, you know, customers and teams and getting around. So much better than we were 2 years ago.
Ramneek, are you getting a sense of quote unquote back to normal now?
Yeah, I mean, we are able to see people's faces, so that's good.
We can do this event in person and not virtually.
Yeah. No, I think it's getting back to normal. If you look at consumer confidence, people are walking into stores, people are buying much more than before. I think all the indices are up, so it's looking better, yeah.
And Arun, same question to you. How do you feel when now things are opening up?
I was just asking somebody, I think it's great to be back. First event after 3 years. I think we were doing one every 45 days for the last 10 years before COVID. And now it's like back after 3 years. So it feels good to be in a hall on stage. You know, of course, I didn't miss the lights, but it's great to be here and, you know, find time with everybody.
I'm glad you're doing your first in-person event after 3 years with AWS and CNBC TV 18. Gunjan, strange question, but is there anything that you all miss about COVID times?
Home food. Okay. Lockdown, home food, and
no early morning flights.
And time for exercise. I lost weight during COVID, so you know. But now I'm back on the road, and I'm starting to see that needle go back in the wrong direction. So.
Okay, Kunjan.
You know, in COVID times, commuting in Bangalore was much easier. I miss the ease of commute in Bangalore. No? But it's awesome to be back. It's awesome for us to meet each other in person, for the global travel to start, for the schools to open up, for the economy to open up. There are so many good positive vibes around it. And of course, there is an awareness of a tail end risk that still exists with the numbers still spiking up in the US. So there is an aspect about managing through the tail end risk.
As a co-founder of a mobility startup, I seriously don't miss lack of traffic. I encourage that.
All right. Phil, you said you met a lot of your customers in your 50th plus visit to India this time, right? And maybe, you know, the worst of COVID is behind us. That uncertainty is behind us. But we're not done with uncertainty just yet, right? We've got a war looming in Eastern Europe. Inflation is at an all-time high. Needless to say, the world is still extremely uncertain, the macro environment extremely challenging. What has been your conversation with your clients and customers like? What are they feeling now?
Yeah, and I think it kind of relates to some of the earlier comments too. I think that customers are trying to do their best job to predict, and they're trying to then use newer tools like artificial intelligence, right? So how do I predict what customers may need in the future, you know, with limited information? There's a case study that I think is pretty fun, or it's kind of cool. Domino's wanted to be able to, they decided if they could get you pizza within 10 minutes and it was hotter, it would be a disruptive customer experience. But it takes 15 to 20 minutes to make a pizza, then 10 to 15 minutes to drive it to you. So what they did is they start to use artificial intelligence and train the model, and they actually make the pizza, put it in the car, and start driving it to your zip code before you actually order the pizza, right? If you can bring that kind of innovation, that kind of disruption to your industry, I think you're much better able to handle kind of uncertainty and unpredictability. And I think that's where customers are striving for. Agility, flexibility, take cost out, reinvest that cost in the business, and better serve customers.
It always starts and ends with customers, right? When it comes to AWS. Arun, you know, when the pandemic hit us, right, all companies faced this pandemic paralysis. And I'm sure at Salesforce as well. And you all were a company with more than, 50, 60,000 employees. And although you are a tech-first company, you help companies move to the cloud, you all still had this in-person culture, right? Could you talk about, you know, that journey, the challenges that you faced, and how you know, rallied all your employees to transform themselves internally so that you could enable your customers?
Look, I think culture is not just a word that we use in the company. You know, we live it every day. And so when the pandemic hit, I think the first thing the company said is, how do we make sure that we take care of our employees? And everything that we did, all the innovations that we brought to folk, you know, whether it was work.com, our innovation around vaccine cloud, safety cloud, everything that we did started with the employee first view, knowing that if we take care of our employees, we'll take care of our customers, right? And so a lot of that happened. You know, the ultimate culmination of that was first week of February, we did an in-person global kickoff, and everybody had canceled kickoffs around in the technology space. We did an in-person global kickoff for 5,000 people in New York City at Javits Center. And, you know, to me, almost everybody that I was speaking to and said, I'm going for a global kickoff, they looked at me like I was just crazy, because the numbers were still quite high. If you remember December, Jan, it was close to 300,000 infections a day in the US. So I think we learned, and we talk about this mantra of success from everywhere, and we've learned to internalize and make that happen. We had to work with our customers where we were completely virtual, right? Our employees were spread all around the world. People had left their hometowns. We had to find a way to have everybody connected first within the organization and our customers. And so I think, you were asking a question, what's going to stay for future? I think this concept of success from anywhere and how organizations are going to learn to adapt to it is something that I don't see, going away, whether it's COVID or, and I think Puneet said this right as well. This is the new future. We're going to have more pandemics. We're going to have more of these come our way. We just got to learn to be agile about how we react to it. But more importantly, it's not just our employees, it's all our stakeholders, right? Our partners, our customers, the communities that we serve. When the pandemic hit, we had 3 plane loads of help that came from Salesforce. We were one of the first companies to jump in feet first and say, what do you guys need? And so I think, as a company, we believe in this concept of stakeholder activism. And part of that is making sure that everybody is taken care of. And that's been the way in which the company responded over the last 2 years.
A salute to all the leaders, because in a very challenging time, you all had to look after the well-being of your employees while driving the innovation agenda of your company into the future. So a salute to all the business leaders who are gathered here today. You all have done a tremendous job. Ramneek, you're a digital native company, right? It must have been easier for you compared to some of the older, bigger legacy companies. But it's still not easy, right? Can you talk about the challenges and how you drove growth and innovation at the company in the last 2 years?
When it initially started, the first 2 months, there was a lot of confusion around because there were no one knew, there was not a playbook, no one knew what to do. It wasn't sure which businesses are running, which are not running. Our first challenge was actually very interesting because we had a lot of folks coming in and we knew a lot of people need glasses, especially with everything moving digital and the workload essentially going up on the eyes. But we saw a huge drop in conversion. And while we tried a lot of regular things out, we called up customers and what we found out is very simple. They said that, Amazon is not able to deliver. How are you able to deliver? And it was just a matter of giving that education that it's an essential business. We are allowed to operate. And that's when we did a couple of things which helped us in a long way and gave us a 2x growth very quickly. First thing that we did is we made it... Is it better? Yes. So the first thing that we did is we made it very clear and loud to our customers that we are open and we are able to deliver. Everything was closed and we wanted to get our word out. So we tried a very simple thing. We asked a couple of our customers who were getting deliveries to share their experience. To our delight, a lot of people sent a lot of videos over WhatsApp of how they're using their new glasses. And at that time, I don't know if a lot of folks remembered, but Ramayana and Mahabharata had taken off again on TV. So we used that opportunity and stitched together all the WhatsApp videos to create a national campaign out of it, of just people in their home talking about how they're using the glasses. And that helped us a lot.
And fascinating. And in terms of technology?
In terms of technology, there are a couple of things that we did. Being an omni-channel player, we are already available at stores and we come to your houses, but all of that was done and gone for during that period. So we looked at what is the channel that people are naturally gravitating towards, and we came across WhatsApp. So what we did is we launched WhatsApp as our new channel. People were already familiar with it and they were very used to using it. And that became the fastest growing channel for us. And we now have the capability to complete your full order on WhatsApp without leaving the app.
Okay, WhatsApp is fairly ubiquitous in India. Neeraj, can you talk about how you all recalibrated your approach towards customers? The sector took a hit. Your sector is very volatile, yet there are so many new customers, the new millennial, which are interested in the platform.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Can we all hear Neeraj?
Yeah. So, in the company, we first came to know about COVID when one of my friend was mentioned that he's making a lot of money supplying masks to China. That was like a shocker, and it really meant something, that something is seriously wrong. Because typically China exports everything, and we are exporting masks to China, right? That was opposite. So in a month, we announced work from home, which meant we started working in a model where we never, in which we never worked. So we had like 200 different locations in India, and everybody was only working on their laptops from the office setup. So that was very challenging initially. And then 12th March 2020, Bitcoin prices fell 50% in just one day, in a single day. We never expected that. That was due to the pandemic. And the market was, so we suddenly stopped onboarding any new customer for that matter, because nobody wants to invest in such a market, in such a volatile asset class. So in the last 2 years of our journey, we onboarded, we won 5 lakh customers in total, right? And then it was a very tough situation. We stopped onboarding new customers, and now what to do? We could not do Facebook marketing. We could not do Google marketing, because Google AdWords, because that was not allowed, for a crypto company. But 3 or 4 things happened. So 3-4 things happened. One is due to pandemic, there was a massive liquidity available, printed by various governments, right? So which caused a gradual bull run in the crypto markets. Secondly, people, when they are at home, they have a lot of time to explore new platforms, to invest in new asset classes, do their KYC, do their bank account verifications and everything. So we could, people had a lot of time to invest on the platform. And then we also were able to raise a fundraise, right, during the tough time. So all of the factors combined, next 1 year, from 5 lakh, we reached to a customer base of 1 crore, right? That was like in just 11 months. So all these factors, we used a simple strategy. In this market, if you have to win a customer for a new asset class, where people have never invested before, you need to reach out to them first, before any other company reaches out, right? Because that first impression in the customer's mind is going to be very, very important. And once a customer gets onboarded to a platform doing KYC, depositing money, etc., that's a very long process. A customer won't repeat it for another platform once you have done it for one, right? So the clear-cut strategy was go into the market very fast, reach to the maximum user base, at once, do a massive campaign in a very short time, and that is how, that's the only way you can win the market. Otherwise, somebody else will take it, right? And you won't stand a chance. So that was the strategy. We launched a massive campaign. We did a lot of branding activities. Education was our goal, because this is a new asset class. Class familiarity is very low. People don't understand what is Bitcoin. People don't understand how does it move up and down. So we created a lot of content on YouTube. We were not allowed to do advertisements. So a lot of content marketing, right, and SEO, etc., and branding on television. So that is how we got such a large user base in short time.
And it's not just about moving first, right? It's about building the trust of all the customers who are on your platform, and you'll manage to do that for so many customers that you have currently. So great job over there. Gunjan, I think in the previous discussion we all established that digital transformation is about building the blocks, the muscle to be agile, to be extremely nimble. Now Goldman Sachs is an old bank, right? Can you talk about how you all are developing the culture of innovation? How have you all transitioned into this digital age?
Sure. You're right. We are an old bank. We are a 153-year-old organization in Bangalore since the last 18 years. But even before COVID struck, it was clear that there are tech-led, digital-led businesses that the firm had to go into as a core business imperative. And as Puneet mentioned, Phil mentioned that cloud provided that ability to be agile. Cloud provided that ability to have elasticity in the way we could develop new businesses. So we did a full business strategy around 2 core businesses of the firm that we launched with digital-led interface, both on AWS. The first being a treasury services solution for the corporates. The idea being that it's a 150 billion plus revenue opportunity for global companies in this domain. And if we go with a digital-led interface, we can disrupt the marketplace. So we launched it. It took us about 18 months to launch a brand new business from inside the firm. We finished 2021 with about 350 corporate clients and about $54 billion in corporate deposits in that business. The second business we launched, like we have been an institutional bank servicing the corporate clients, the hedge funds, the pension funds, the asset managers, the governments around the world. And we thought that we can enter into consumer banking. But consumer banking in a way that we benefit from the balance sheet of the firm, we benefit from the brand of the firm, but don't necessarily go and open up branch offices. Don't go and necessarily open up offices that require putting up ATMs, that we go totally into digital banking. And so we launched digital banking about 5 years back. Again, a platform that is on AWS, a platform that truly is on the cloud, and a range of products, right from credit card. We launched our credit card, which is the most successful credit card in the history of credit card business with Apple. We launched credit card along with GM. We have our deposit business. We have our lending business on digital cloud. And I'm very happy to share that, like, in just 5 years, it is just by the deposits that we have accrued, which are over $110 billion. It's the 11th largest bank in US, and with 0 branch offices, with 0 ATMs. It's all on the cloud, and the journey continues. So in many ways, to what was being talked about earlier, the elasticity, the scale, the agility, but having a core business purpose or why you are going on the cloud was in the center of our strategy.
Did you ever feel, because you are competing with digital natives in the financial sector, that as you were transitioning to cloud, partnering with AWS, it's do or die, now or never? Did you ever get that feeling?
It wasn't a do or die kind of binary outcomes that we were thinking. It was much more about being mindful and being purposeful on why we are doing it. And if we are doing it, what are the guardrails in which we should be thinking about establishing brand new businesses on a new paradigm? And what is the preparedness that was needed on our side? And what's the preparedness that was needed on the AWS side? Just like the 2 businesses that I talked about, we also launched in partnership with AWS globally the financial cloud services for data and analytics for all the financial institutions in the world. It's an exclusive partnership between Goldman Sachs and AWS, where we have API'd out our core analytics, mathematics, statistical models for corporates to develop along with their developers in the AWS platform on the cloud. So again, it's about being mindful, which also means you should know when not to go. And it's okay to be on-prem for certain choices if you're not ready to transform a business.
So you have to know what is the value that you're trying to derive, the business outcome that you're trying to derive, and know how to get it. Varun, Bounce is a company which is born recently. You're fully digital. You were born directly on the cloud. So what is digital transformation for you? What does a partner like AWS bring?
I'll tell you the story of do or die. So we are a mobility company, and when COVID hit, everything really stopped. I mean, people stopped moving, which means that Bounce, which had an offer for getting people from point A to point B, really had to reinvent itself, to survive and continue forward. So when COVID hit us, and we had a lot of scooters on the road, primary thing was to really get it back and get our bearings together. But while we were doing that, we also had the opportunity to start changing the tires on a car which was running very fast. We had about 30,000 scooters on the road in Bangalore, doing about 150,000 rides every day. But when COVID hit us, we had the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and really do that sustainably. We've always been digital first. I mean, entire infrastructure has been on the cloud, and that really gave us the agility to just transform ourselves right when things were bad. We really, when COVID was in its peak, we transformed some of the infrastructure that we had built to track our bikes to track hospitals which were giving out vaccines. And that was something that, that really helped our customers out, and also users that had nothing to do with Bounce before. And then while along the way, when business started just gradually after the COVID lockdown had stopped and people started moving around, we knew that we should, going forward, not just be digital, but also sustainable. So we stopped our petrol vehicle fleet that we had, which we had a lot of them, and went 100% electric. We had a lot of learnings from operating the petrol scooters, and we really wanted to make sure that we applied them into electric scooters. And when we were doing that, we did discover that it's not very ubiquitous out there. Like India has not still electrified itself, and we're still in the very, very, very dawn. Like early morning alarm. We probably just hit this, set the alarm and just went to sleep. And we're at that stage in electric vehicle history today. And I think we really have a huge opportunity transforming our learnings into a new design which has benefited us as fleet, but also we've opened it up to consumers, and pretty much brought the swapping infrastructure, the new technology where you don't have to worry about range to place. And all of this would have been, is really possible because we're fairly agile, and of course that means that the fact that we've been on cloud also helps out a lot.
Phil, how does AWS help its customers have the same culture that you all have in terms of customer centricity, ownership? Can you tell us how you help your customers and bring that focus into their business?
Yeah, a lot of what we've been talking about has been more on the technology side of things and how we're working there. But there's a lot of things that Amazon and AWS do internally that we also make available to our customers. For example, we have a pretty big retail operation, right? So we'll share our own forecasting tools and methodologies and mechanisms, born on retail for retail. So share that with our retail customers as an example. Another thing is we have these we call mechanisms. They're kind of repeatable ways to go drive outcomes. Working backwards, right? Really deeply understanding your customers, started with a PR, frequently asked questions, press release, FAQ, and then working backwards from there. So we'll bring that methodology to our customers and train them on that. Exec visioning. I talked a little bit about training and skills development, and that's not just technology skills, but also business skills. And so there's a whole suite of capabilities of what made Amazon Amazon that we share with our customers as well.
Ramni, you're a B2C company, you're omni-channel, you have online as well as offline presence. How do you ensure that a customer experience is seamless across all the digital touch points that they have with Lenskart? And how are you using technology to keep a customer front and center of all the operations?
So as an omni-channel company, the first thing that we have to do is we have to really establish the identity of the customer no matter which channel they go through. So the very first things that we did in India, we were the first ones to do it in India, is when you enter any Lenskart store, we know who's coming in, we know what you have browsed online and what are you looking for, what is your taste like, and the store team is able to curate the collection as per you. And what we do is we do all our checkouts on the iPads which are available at the store. So we are able to give you a collection which is similar to your taste and likes online. And we are able to give you an experience which is very similar to what we have online. And in case you are in a hurry and you move on from offline to online, you are not able to close your purchase there, you can anytime pick that up online and take it forward from there.
And how are you using AI and ML?
So the way we use it is in two fronts. First is that when you go to our Lenskart app, you can take a selfie and get the right fitting glasses for yourself. While you do that, we also capture a lot of your facial attributes and we anonymize that data across a lot of customers, and we are able to give you glasses which will not only fit you well but also look good on you. And that is used by our store team also to suggest glasses to you at stores or when we visit your house.
Recommendations.
Yeah.
Neeraj, there are many, crypto platforms, right? Simplistically put, all of them are digital natives. They're all born, in the last few years, right? How do you ensure that Coin DCX survives, right? It's sustainable. And how are you leveraging technology to keep innovation and ensure that the platform remains sustainable?
In crypto, a company's, it's very volatile, not just the market. Markets.
Regulatory-wise also, right? Isn't the regulatory landscape also evolving rapidly?
Yes, yes. So that's precisely what I mean by, a lot of volatility apart from markets also. I'll give you a short example. When we launched in 2018, we launched on 4th April, right? 4th to 7th April was our launch week. And on 6th April, RBI came up with a banking ban on cryptocurrency companies in India, which meant we could not have a bank account, right? So that means, it's very difficult to operate a business when you don't have a bank account. How do you pay your employees? How do you take in customer deposits? And we survived that period for 2 years. So we went to Supreme Court, and the whole industry went to Supreme Court, and there was a case which went on for 2 years, and then eventually Supreme Court ruled in favor of the industry. So after that 2 years of struggle, we could once again have bank account. That was very basic requirement. So you can understand the volatility on the regulatory front, the volatility on the market. I mentioned about the crash, right? And also in terms of sentiments, right? So I think what has kept us going and what has kept myself going and working hard in this industry is the long-term belief. Just the long-term belief that cryptocurrencies, the blockchain technology, and the Web3 applications are going to stay and change our lives just the way internet did. It's like 1998, 1999 of internet for Web3 technologies. The applications like Uber, applications like Instagram, social networks, all are going to come in Web3, in the next 1 to 2 decades. So, and I would love to work for this industry for the long run, right? So that's what keeps us going, the whole company. And the good part is, when any event happens, a bad event, an unfavorable event happens, there is no attrition in the company. No one leaves the company. Anybody who joins CoinDCX has like 450 people today, right? And everybody understands, has signed up for this volatility, right? For this journey. And everybody is happy to work throughout this. Everybody believes in the long term. Okay, this is going to be a very disruptive technology. So that's what keeps us going, again and again. So that's the fuel.
Very nice. Arun, Puneet just told us, like, some time back that his advice, one of the 3 was that there is no business strategy. No, what was it? All business strategies are cloud strategies, right? Okay, you heard that. So can you tell us, based on your experiences with your customers, how cloud, AI, ML are helping your clients scale and ensure business continuity?
Look, the advantage we have is 22 years back when Mark Benioff stepped out and founded Salesforce, it was founded on what is now known as the cloud. The concept of a multi-tenant architecture, the concept of SaaS and subscription that everybody uses was founded by Salesforce 22 years back. So we don't know any other model, right? We start, we end with the cloud. When you think about where I think the industry has moved, I fully agree with that principle that you can't have a business strategy without a sound cloud strategy. And I think India has evolved in the last, I would say, 5 years, compared to where I was in my previous company and what I'm seeing today with customers. It's quite simply moved away, to be honest, from any of the conversations around technology to, we did a panel of CFOs, 14 CFOs in this country, big, small, everybody. Now, I've been in the business for 30 years, but for the first time, I spent 60 minutes with the CFO group, and they didn't talk cost. Easily the most revealing experience of my professional career. It was about customer experience, which again was a new one for me. It was about business growth. It was about resilience. And even when they came to cost, they came at it at a very different angle, right? So I think what's happening right now is everybody's talking about how can they wow their customers? How can they deliver those new experiences? You know, the whole omnichannel thing that he talked about. We did this for Titan, which is one of the most prominent jewelry brands in this country. Of course, COVID gave them a sucker punch, but they had to quickly move from being an all physical to a digital experience, and the same issues, right? Whereas they move from a physical format to a to an online format or the other way around. How do you keep thread of that customer? So today, when you want to do all of these things, it is impossible for you to do a lot of these on-premise, right? Cloud becomes a starting point. You talked about AI and ML. Today, on the Salesforce platform, we make 160 billion predictions every day. Einstein is our underlying AI methodology built into our platform. It's not something we overlay, right? So as every customer uses Salesforce around the world, we're building data models. It's making predictions for our customers across every industry and every use case that you can think of. So for us, all of these are foundational to what we do with our customers. This is not a bolt-on. This is not something that we come and say, you got to pay additional. You buy the Salesforce platform, by definition, you're built in with all of these capabilities. And so what we're seeing is customers are now moving at a rapid pace to see how can they take advantage of this. How do they build new business models? How do they build that competitive edge? And the other interesting thing which the CFO said was, they're not holding back on spending on digital. They're holding back on just about everything else, but everything that's digital is going through, which was, for most of us, probably you will agree with me, most of us, it's music to our ears, because this is the first time we've seen such a massive surge in demand. And I don't think we're going to see a period in the next 5 years as what we've seen before or after.
So you think even if there is a recession, and increasingly a lot of economists are talking about that globally we might hit a recession, and in the past, whenever we've had a recession, we've seen tech spending get squeezed, post-Lehman. Do you think this time it's going to be different, that even if companies face cost pressures, tech budgets will be the last to get squeezed?
I don't want to make predictions on this one because I don't want to be held knowing I'm on record. Look, I think companies that have gone down this path know that it's a point of no return, right? It's not like you're going to shut off and go back to being physical, in a sense. So once you're committed to a digital strategy, then it's your company's existence, it's your company's evolution at stake. At that point, you might see a little bit of peaks and troughs, but I think as you average it out over a period of time, I don't think you're going to see the knee-jerk reaction we saw in 2001 or what we saw in 2008, because it's your fundamental existence, right? And so I think as the CFOs are and COOs and CEOs are building their strategies with the board, they're building this knowing that this is the future, right? And they're making those transitions today. I don't think those are revocable kind of decisions. They're saying this is our future and this is where we're going. So we might see speed bumps, but do I see knee-jerk reactions and spending freezes? I'm hoping not, at least for all of us. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Varun, Bounce is designed for a particular geography, for a unique demographic, at least right now. When you want to scale up on a pan-India scale, how will you leverage the power of technology to do that?
So even now, when we are operating in multiple geographies, and Bounce Infinity especially, we are pretty much present pan-India. One thing that definitely has worked out is the blueprint that we form in a particular city, and then just pretty much implement the same thing across geographies. Of course, there are going to be some local flavors that we need to adopt to. And we do, and in our research, it becomes very clear that not every city is the same. There is going to be differences from, let's say, Bangalore in the south to Delhi in the north. There are going to be seasonal variations. There are going to be temperature variations that we have to account for in battery charging and infrastructure around there. That we definitely do, but the underlying backend and the underlying technologies is pretty much flexible enough to cover that. And when we are thinking about how geographies are different, it's also about how you reach out to people, how you reach out to customers. And that's another strategy that we definitely have to pretty much tailor to every geography that we enter into. And of course, digital is a very powerful media to reach out to people. And that's what has really helped us out as well. Although we have a fantastic TV ad, we haven't really gone into it because the reach that the digital marketing has given is so large. And pretty much the factories are choked up with demand. And we really have to, in a spot, to cover the supply for it. So yeah, I think we definitely make the best of digital avenues out there to cater to various geographies and have a fairly simple plan that works for most with a few little tweaks to just accommodate the flavors of of local markets.
Gunjan, Arun spoke about, going digital is a commitment, right? It's a journey. It's not a destination, right? Partnership is important in that context. Your partnership is important in your personal life, and it's important in your professional life as well. Right now, when a company wants to embark on this journey, digital transformation journey, and they have to choose a partner, what do they need to keep in mind? What do you look for when you chose AWS?
Yeah, I'll give an answer that is perhaps more abstract, and then perhaps lean into our partnership with AWS. But in any partnership, it's about a common purpose. It's about alignment to common goals, ensuring that there is a intersection of the need to the capabilities that are being provided by the partner, and there is a spirit of long-term commitment towards that partnership. In there comes transparency, in there comes trust, in there comes communication, and an alignment of personalities driven through values. Now, in the context of AWS, it has been a deeply rooted partnership for us. As I said, that it is one of our cloud providers, but our newest businesses have been launched on AWS. My colleague, the co-CIO of Goldman Sachs, has come from AWS. He is the global co-CIO of Goldman Sachs also. It's a journey that has translated into a range of capabilities that are being unlocked for financial institutions globally to make it easier, to make it in some ways with less friction, to benefit from data, analytics being provided on the cloud, exposed via API, so that the developers can co-develop that on the cloud. Certainly, the access to range of products and services that we are providing to individual clients, to corporate clients, across a range of different geographies is determined through the infrastructure that we are getting from AWS, the service that we are getting from AWS, the capabilities that we have gotten from the platform, and along the way, we have learned, and I'm hopeful that we have shared our practices from a financial institution perspective, the imperatives, the regulatory constraints that we have to operate in with our partners at AWS to make their offerings a bit more aware about the imperatives and the constraints in which the financial services industry have to operate in different geographies.
Ramni, similar question to you. Your one eye is constantly on the future and future innovations that Lenskart will be looking to do. In that context, what do you expect from a partner? What is it that you want from them in this journey?
So one thing that COVID has really taught us is that plans need to be changed very, very quickly. So the number one thing that is needed from a partner is definitely the agility, a platform which is scalable as well as agile enough so that we can go ahead and make the changes overnight that we need to do in the business these days. So that is the first thing that we look at. The second thing that we look at is scalability, that the partner is able to grow and has ideally demonstrated that there are multiple businesses which have grown significantly on them. So those are the two key things that we look at, agility and scalability.
Arun, when you spoke about digital transformation, you spoke about value, right? About business outcomes. Very often in our conversation with companies, you realize that they're on this digital transformation path, but somewhere 2 years down the line, they realize that they've not gotten the full benefit, the maximum benefit, the value of digital transformation efforts. What they've got is just a shadow approximation of the full benefit. Why is that? Is it because companies are doing these small digital projects in silos, and there isn't a comprehensive top-down digital transformation effort? What, according to you, are the challenges that companies face?
Well, I'll give you an example. We had a financial institution that embarked on a digital transformation journey, and they got their first product out after 18 months. And we had a similar financial institution that decided to get out a new product, and we did it in 12 weeks. You couldn't tell the difference between the two organizations. I think the big challenge or difference or opportunity, as I see it, is transformation is not just a technology part, right? And I think that's where most organizations and people get it wrong. Technology is one part of it. The people and the process piece that goes along with it is what completes the triac, if you will. So to me, I think when you look at India, we love customization, right? We love customizing everything. I mean, every customer I meet today, I say, look, I'll get you out of the gates in the first 12 weeks, as long as you understand you have a SaaS platform and it's meant to deliver that value in that time frame. But if you want to customize every radio button and every pull-down menu and everything else because you want it to look like your technical debt from 20 years back, guess what? You're not going to do 12 weeks, you're going to do 12 months. So I think the reality is that everybody's in a hurry to get off the blocks, right? Business does not have time for long-drawn projects. I think the cloud has helped customers get very quickly to market to be able to drive new revenue models. There are businesses that are so competitive that if you can't respond in 6 hours, you're pretty much dead. You've lost the opportunity, right? You can't do it in the old world of how you were transforming your business or technology, if you will. And so I think the biggest opportunity is to look at what are those short-term, quick wins that you can do, and then have an iterative innovation model, right? So if you think about 10 years back, if you looked at technology projects, the first drop would be 18 months out. You had to buy infrastructure, you had to buy applications, you called big SIs to come in and implement, and they would say 18 months out is when you'll see the first release, right? Today, customers want to see the first release, even 12 weeks in some cases is extreme. They're thinking 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're saying, we would love to see innovation happen almost every day. We'd like to see innovation happen every week, new capabilities being driven every week. So I think that requires a fundamental change in the way you operate, in your business process, getting your people around it. I love, this next generation, the way they operate, the way they think, the ideas they bring. It challenges everything that we've known for, the last 3 decades. And so I think moving into those 3 pillars and making sure every one of those are important, the best projects that I've seen have a good mix of all 3. The worst projects, purely technology driven.
So the technology roadmap blueprint has to be as detailed as the people roadmap or the processes roadmap, and it needs to be a marriage of all of it. Phil, anything that you would like to add? Because you're constantly empowering business in their path.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few trends we see that where the successful projects versus the others. One is it has top-down sponsorship. So this is not something that as leaders of the business you can delegate down. I think you need to lead from the front. So the second thing is having very kind of bold and ambitious, right? If you want to just make a small impact to the business, nobody's going to get too excited. I do want to reiterate some of those points too, but then you have to start very focused and iterate. And Puneet said it, right? You get 70% right, get out there and start learning. Don't wait till everything's perfect. And I think if you follow some of those things, we've seen those types of projects have much greater success than some of the others.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today and for your insights. We could have gone on and on. I think we have already overstepped in the time allocated. So thank you very much. It's been an engaging, insightful discussion. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
let's move on now to our next conversation for the evening. Innovation has been the cornerstone of growth since the advent of technology. But today, it's positioned as the new age growth catalyst. As enterprises begin to reinvent and re-envision the new growth strategy after the pandemic, there was a massive realization of untapped opportunities. Technology leaders and innovators who shaped the business thinking and strategy for success started to perceive it from a tech-first approach. This panel that I'm about to introduce will discuss how leaders of tomorrow will change and how they're reaping the benefits of tangible services and solutions for the future. I would like to call upon Mr. Amit Chaudhary, CPO, CTO of Ecom Express. Mr. Fanish Gururat, CTO, Coop. Rajat Bansal, CTO, Games 24/7. Mr. Narendra Agrawal, Global CIO, Dabur. Prakash Padaria, Senior Vice President and Global CISO at Oyo. And Mr. Satinder Singh, Head of Solutions Architect India, Digital Native Business at AWS. Thank you very much for waiting by. I hope you all were happily engaged in the conversation before this. So let's dive straight in. Narendra, COVID exposed the fault lines of the best of the companies, right? Even companies which had a focus on digital transformation. At Dabur, could you start off by telling us what were the problems that you encountered? What were the solutions that you envisaged? And what were the challenges that you faced as you wanted to implement those solutions?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you to the panel before. I'm just so happy we had business people talk about tech so passionately. It's always a lovely sight to hear and see this. Talking about COVID and the challenges and the opportunities, I think we've spoken enough about challenges, and the sort of challenges we faced at Dabur on my earlier roles also were very similar that the industry faced in terms of mobility and others, right? I'd rather twist this in terms of the opportunities it created, because the way I see it, the challenges were more transient, but the opportunities have been more lasting. And there are really three things I want to talk about in that lens, right? The first one has been mobility unlock. For a long time in the COVID phase, the lack of mobility actually meant a lot of challenge. But it threw open this huge opportunity where now people can work anytime, anywhere. And what this has really done, and this is really because of the technology, how we could virtually connect and collaborate, is it's suddenly opened up a lot of access to talent. So we're not bound by physical locations. And it has also given us flexibility to balance work and life in a very effective manner. So that to me was one of the big opportunities. The second, of course, has been around the consumer space. There was always this conversation about changing consumer preferences in what they consume and how they consume. COVID absolutely accelerated that journey. And what it meant is there was a big shift in how hence we are engaging with our consumers. And that has been a journey, we've been through and still going through, where, for example, our spends on digital marketing has expanded, our underlying capabilities in this space has expanded from performance marketing, gradually moving towards programmatic, doing segmentation analytics, doing more sharpshooting, to building our own platforms to directly reach to our consumers. Has been a journey and is a continuing journey for us. And the third has been selling models. Again, it started off as a huge challenge where it became very difficult to meet our consumer demands. But gradually, through the peaks and troughs, it's actually augmented with a lot of additional selling models, right from telecalling and doing telesales to actually, enabling our retailers with apps where they can order themselves, augmenting analytics and building that belief in our underlying AI/ML machines that we've created for assortments meant that we could actually drive selling through various alternate methods, various alternate channels, and actually increase our reach. So this to me is really how, for Dabur, the opportunities have built.
Since you're talking about opportunities and not challenges, let's stick with that theme. Rajat, y'all were always a digital company, right? For most legacy company, it was about pivoting to digital. You were already on digital. You were already collecting data. You were already analyzing it. You already had all those, online games, right? What did you do differently? How are you leveraging technology differently in the last 2 years?
No, definitely. We were digital native, and we are digital only. In fact, there. But for us also, there were two things that happened. One was which was like a tailwind for us, where what COVID did was it accelerated the adoption of people looking at online for entertainment. And as a business, we are in a business of gaming. And that helped us bring more people looking to come online there. Although we are in business of gaming, at heart we are a very tech-first, AI-driven, science-based company. So what we did was saying that as this volume of people or entertainment moved online, we firmly believe in a very, very hyper-personalized experience for our customers there. And basis that, in terms of as these people are moving, new kind of personas are emerging, new kind of geographies people are coming in, new behavior is emerging, how quickly we adapt that and include it in our personalization algorithms. When you come to any of our games, it's so seamlessly integrated. What kind of deposit will you like? What kind of game will you like to play? What kind of level will you like to play? Now, how do you fine-tune that for as new personas are emerging? Was a challenge, and that's where I think Puneet said, when there is uncertainty, cloud is the best option, and that's what helped us scale very, very fast there. The second, so the opportunity with the right level of partnership, right level of tool set helped us go faster. The second challenge was definitely with COVID, the schedules went for a toss. Now on-field things changed, on-field events changed. How quickly can you react to that? And to us, that was a very, very strong muscle that we could build to say that how do we evolve technology where I can change overnight. I can change at an hour's notice. If something on field gets cancelled, how does it affect my online game? So to me, those were the two very, very key insights in terms of a lot more data, a lot more personalization, a lot more science, as well as ability to change and react very, very instantaneously.
Prakash, Oyo was perhaps the hardest hit, right, in the COVID era, the entire hospitality sector. How did being on cloud help you all survive? How did it help bring about business continuity and help you rebuild for tomorrow?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you, CNBC, for this opportunity. Lots of people are chatting on the side. Probably I would request if you could take a seat. I could see the discomfort from Rima. There's lots of disturbance which causes. So please take your chairs. Just to start with, right, we were in the news for a lot of good reason, including IPO. So I do have my notes with me so that I give the right figures and the right data. Starting with a brighter note, right? Look at these people, everybody in the room, right? The 2 years time which has gone, very, very hard on humanity, right? Hospitality industry was very, very badly hit. Obviously, as a company, you can't look at a leisure or a 5-star hotel stay when people are dying out there. 2 years are gone. Probably we are looking at a brighter side of it, probably now. So let me start with a brighter note, right? The travel industries are back, the hotel stays are back, and that's what we are experiencing at Oyo. Probably everybody is seeing that positiveness. I'll just share some of the data very, very quickly. Just in April, on a one weekend, we had received 8 lakh bookings, right? That clearly shows, I'm sure, as soon as the lockdown was off by the government, you will see the photos of the hill station, people just crowding the whole hill station, right? Obviously, we as a company took lots of benefit of that, for sure. In terms of the growth in the cities, we have experienced almost 200% growth, which is really, really huge in hospitality sector. We are very heavy outside of India. I just wanted to share that because lots of people think that OYO is more about having a 500 rupees room in somewhere in Paharganj, Delhi, or probably, the cheaper rooms out there. But lots of people don't know the empire of OYO, which is outside of India, right? So if anybody of you are traveling outside of India, I'm sorry, there's a bit of marketing, but then please check belvilla.com. OYO is really, really huge outside of India. You will see amazing properties whenever you travel outside of India there. So that's the few bit there.
You're giving us a discount?
We do have discount coupons. We will talk it offline.
That's captured. Satinder, data sits right at the heart of every technology, right? And we know Amazon's obsession with customers, not just at Amazon, at AWS, but even which will enable for your clients. Can you talk a little bit more about the customer's journey and how you are enabling your customers harness the power of data?
Yeah, I think fundamentally data is driving today's business. I'll give you an example. When we talk about, and Krish was talking about scale of India when he was talking about machine learning models. Let me give you an example, a very profound example of scale first. We were working with Dream 11, and this project was called Data Highway, as Dream 11 was calling it. The project was very simple. They said, look, we want to achieve microsecond latency in getting user behavior. Okay. And since we are talking about mobile analytics, web analytics, we don't want to lose experience of our gamers because they're very intense users just before the match and after the match. They were saying the traditional sampling models that are used are fairly accurate, are not the ones that are requirement. So we want to capture everything with millisecond latency. And as we started architecting this platform, we helped them build this whole analytics architecture, a 360-degree user journey. And what we ended up achieving is, and they reported it publicly, and I'm going to use those figures. These are during IPL 2020. They process around 50 million transactions per minute. I repeat, 50 million transactions per minute. And in just around 14 terabytes worth of data every day, and achieving microsecond latency at 40% lesser cost than their original platform. So once you start looking at that, you realize that data is enabling in a very cost-effective fashion, and cloud is enabling access of data in multiple fashions. And let me extend that a little bit. How do you utilize data? And Rajat talked about how his company has been using data, and we've partnered with Rajat fairly extensively, and he's better placed to explain that in detail. But once you get all the data, he talked about hyper-personalization. How do I personalize? But another use case that we worked on, Rajat, was this whole fraud analytics and gaming and ensuring that gamers do not pollute with each other in real time using the data that you have collected. Right?
No, definitely. Those are very, very interesting models that we have deployed there. And not only that, even responsible gameplay, like in terms of how do we prevent, like you can say, overuse of like either in terms of time or money, where customers pressure.
Yeah. So personalization, fraud detection, player collusion detection in real time is all based on data platform. And I'll just give you one more example. And this is all about, we are working in a very uncertain environment, and everyone has talked about it. Supply chain optimization and power of prediction. And Phil did talk about the fact that at Amazon, we've perfected through our retail business ability to forecast. And Misho used our forecasting service, it's called Amazon Forecast, to improve their forecast accuracy by 20% in half the time that they would, if they would have traditionally built their own models, they achieved using a single service in half the time and yet improved their accuracy by 20%. That's a very, very profound examples of A, preparing for scale and scale of this country. B, leveraging data to further business, whether it's personalization, fraud detection, or forecasting.
No, data is clearly the new oil, as they say. Amit, for a very long time, we thought that, source code is the IP, right? The source code is now open. It's data which is the new IP. But we're not able to all maximize the full potential of data or harness the entire benefit of data. Yes, there are many examples in which you are able to, but not all companies have managed to do that. Why is that? What are the challenges, and how can we overcome it? What do you do at Ecom?
So I think if you have to put it through, data is being produced at a very, very fast rate. All across the world, when you look at logistics, what Ecom Express does, there's a vast multitude of interconnected, internet-enabled devices all along the value chain. Everything is getting tracked, data is produced, signals are produced, events are produced. How do you take all of that data and then make actionable insights on top of it? How do you make sure that you're able to build these insights back into the loop of the application ecosystem, and you do interventions? Like if there is a particular shipment that is getting delayed, you know exactly where it is getting delayed. How do you make someone act on it? How do you make sure that these things are done in near real time? I think that is a challenge. That is largely a challenge because the models that you're building are continuously evolving. You're essentially training on past data. You're trying to get more accurate. You're trying to keep all of the models as stable as possible, fresh as much as possible. You're trying to look at from all of those angles, and you're achieving somewhat of a, I would say, good confidence interval of producing these things. But largely, we are still in that journey. I would say on a scale of 1 to 5, we're probably 2, 2.5. We haven't yet reached the place where a lot of these deterministic algorithms can actually play out very clearly. We are still kind of training our models. We're learning a lot. We are going through the test and train with a lot more focus, with a lot more AI ML, which is kind of going through ups and downs. There are bright spots in a lot of places, like predicting some of those things are getting easier. However, interventions are getting more and more difficult. How do you make sure that you take into account all the different variables, all the different parameters, attributes, everything, and bring them all in one go, and start to kind of bring those interventions possible? So I think in the next few years, as the data is there, the compute is there, as more models evolve, as some of these AI technologies become more and more sharper, I would think we will start to move into the 3 to 4 scale range, whereby we'll be able to achieve a lot more success.
Fanish, would you agree? Ku is probably the youngest amongst all of us. You were born, what, 2 years back?
Precisely, yeah.
And you generate a lot of data, right, as a social media website?
That's true. So
as Ku is scaling up, right, and you're sitting on so much data, do you find it difficult to harness the power?
So let me just take a step back here and explain that. So when Ku started exactly during the onset of pandemic, right, we never thought the scale at which we are going to grow will be so fast, and also the kind of people and the kind of segment that we are going to cater to, right? What we saw was the COVID brought about a situation where different people had to be connected with different people, which had never existed. So there were a lot of people across the tier 2, 3, 4 cities who were craving for some really important content, apart from the generic content that they used to consume, and from legit sources. And to punch in these kind of content to people and also ensure from Ku's perspective, right, how do we personalize, how do we understand the content well? Am I even looking at the content not just in English and Hindi, which is, of course, you can try to ensure, put some good models and get it out. But we're also dealing with content which were Kannada, Telugu, and a lot of other languages. So we had to ensure, one, our translation models, transliteration models, also the recommendation systems, they all work well across all these different native languages. So the content, though was created once by a creator, there was a lot of different transformations and projections of the same content in different languages, which we had to decipher, personalize, and then actually give. And we also had to collect the signals based on users' behavior and users' impression share, what we call, to understand and get more deeper into their activity and segments they're interested in. So that resulted in, I would say, some kind of a data chaos, I would say, if I'm not wrong. So where you get so much of data to both ingest as well as to do processing, which needs a different kind of architecture which has to be built really fast. It cannot be something where you can take time to build slowly. So that needed a lot of innovation, both at the core ingestion layer, plus also at the core fabric where all these different languages intervene. So definitely data as a problem is quite huge. Ku faced it, and we still continue to face as we onboard more Indians onto the platform. And let's see how it goes.
Narendra, you all are using data in this D2C journey, right, at Dabur?
We have started.
Or you're contemplating it?
We've started that journey, yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about it? Because
Absolutely.
that's clearly a big emerging trend.
Yeah, so D2C is a very strategic initiative for us, and I was just talking about, we saw this entire preference of our consumers accelerating towards what we were hypothesizing to happen. And really, when we look at our consumer preferences, which is more around natural-based brands and products, it's sort of homecoming for us, you know, because Dabur is the leading brand in Ayurveda and natural healthcare, right? Where we needed work to do, or where there was an opportunity, was how do we really bridge the gap in terms of communicating with our consumers and communicating in a language they understand. And that's where the whole D2C sort of construct arose for us. So for us, it's not just about generating business or making profits, but it is directly reaching our consumers, talking to them, engaging with them, and in this journey, improving our overall engagement and our brands that we want to eventually deliver to the consumers. So what we are embarking on with D2C is, one, of course, building platforms where they can come, explore our products, explore our brands, know our stories. We've, along with D2C, also created a content connect platform. Ayurveda is about the Vaidyas, and today we don't see Vaidyas being able to speak to a large consumer base because they're very physically located in, you know, the smaller locations in urban areas, right? So we've got this Content Connect platform, and we've got this commerce initiative with the whole idea that consumers can come and have a one destination for their solutions that they're seeking, and in the process help us understand what they're really looking for. So these platforms provide us directly, indirectly, a lot of data about what the consumer is seeking. Is he or she really excited about a brand that, or a product that I've created, or a story that I'm talking about? And when I'm able to churn the data, it tells me what I really need to focus upon in my innovation journey. So that's how we've really, you know, embarked on journey, whether it is sentiment analysis, preference analysis, segmentation of consumers, and how do you reach the consumers eventually.
And just one more question, right? We said that digital transformation is about deriving value, business outcomes, which are not necessarily linked to financial outcomes. It's a lot more than that. So what are the metrics that you use to measure the success of it?
This one's always very tricky in industry models, you know, because eventually when you're spending, there's always a financial metric you would want to associate yourself to. But yes, that evolution has been happening very rapidly. There are various metrics now beyond the pure play efficiency metrics, and someone did speak about it before, that we are focusing on. One, of course, is revenue generation, you know. So if I am running certain campaigns, I am now able to run those campaigns in a very sharp, focused manner. I can identify geographies, I can identify segments when I'm running those campaigns and run correlation with my sales. So I'm now able to measure sales, you know, as a direct correlation to my digital interventions. There are other metrics also around consumer retention. So how am I engaging my consumers? What is the base? Is that base expanding? Is there interaction that I'm generating? So there are measures and KPIs around those we started to measure. is what I'm doing leading to certain positive conversations around my brands? So we're able to now measure all of those parameters also. So is the brand talk improving with what we are trying to do? So there are various such measures internally about employee and their own well-being and their own motivation. There are measures we are now contemplating and talking about, because eventually how our employees feel and value the organization will go a long way in generating value overall. So there are measures internally also that we're tracking through digital. So there are various such measures.
That's a lot riding on digital transformation, man. You spoke about everything. Satinder, anything that you would like to add about how companies should measure if their digital transformation has been successful or they can still eke out some more value?
Yeah, I think he was spot on. There are some direct metrics that you can measure. As an example, if I talk about forecasting, there are metrics that you can directly measure. So we had, like I talked about Meesho as an example, 20% improvement in accuracy. Similarly, we did a forecasting work with more retail on perishable goods and improved their accuracy of their forecast.
How do you know? These are still, metrics that you can measure, right? What about, how do you know if your organization has reached the agility that it needs?
So I think on that part, there are no direct metrics to certain projects, like this personalization, engagement, right? These are very, very hard metrics to quantify. But eventually, if you kind of look at the big picture, it's all about engagement with your customers. How well do you know your customers? And are the customers returning back on your platform? Now, these are metrics that have a direct translation to the business, but I think it's very, very hard to say that since we did personalization, hence this happened. But there is an indirect correlation that is very clear.
Someone wants to add?
I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
Punit did talk about measuring experimentation. If you really want to measure experiments, the best way to do it is to measure the new that the organization is creating. So for example, for us, innovation has been a cornerstone of our growth strategy. And the contribution innovation has done over the last 2 years, the growth in that trajectory talks about the agility that the organization is moving towards. A second measure is the business models where we are generating revenue from the traditional to the modern trade to e-commerce, now e-B2B. How there are newer models that are generating revenue talks about the agility that the organization is moving towards. So there are such measures which are linked to the new, which will tell you whether the organization is agile or not agile.
It all boils to number of experiments you can run.
Okay. Prakash, there is a phrase, right? Elephants can dance. Oyo is achieving that size, right? You're not still an elephant, but you're a very large player now. And being agile as a big company is a lot harder than doing it when you're in your infancy or a young person or young company. So how do you ensure that Oyo remains agile, right? What do you do? What does it mean in terms of processes, in terms of people, in terms of a culture?
We are a 9-year-old startup, which is a unicorn now. And innovation.
A unicorn for a while, no?
Long while. We are way before that probably, thanks to our founders. But yes, innovation happens daily. And what we call our employees Oyopreneur, right? Every employee is an entrepreneur. Obviously, it comes with a good salary and ESOPs. But then, every day there is an innovation. If you look at the platform, the way Oyo has achieved, the new innovations, the usage of AI and ML, I mean, we have some very interesting AI and ML model going on when you book a room, right? It starts with that. Lots of people say there is AI and ML, but what's its real use? I'll give one very clear example, right? We look at the weather data. I'll not give you the secret sauce, but we look at the weather data, right? What is the weather like in that city? What's the chances of people booking a room in that city? If there is any event happening in that city, in that particular location, then change the prices, right? The prices fluctuate. Our interest is more and more customers book the room, as well as patrons, what we call it as the hotel owners, right? They get the benefit. Ultimately, it's they who are our customers. So there's lots of AI and ML which happens. We have chatbots, which has amazing efficiency in terms of cashbacks or returns or the claims. That is, again, very, very good. But when it comes to AI and ML, when you really deploy in your company, spatially in your day-to-day operations, that's where you will see that efficiency.
Amit, you already use AI, you already use ML, you have chatbots as well. What's next in terms of your technology, the kind of investments that you will be making, and what you want to leverage out of it?
So right now what we are doing is we are sitting at the cross junction of IoT, cloud, AI, ML data ecosystem. Now, of course, the drones and autonomous vehicles and all of these things are a little bit further out in the future. We won't get into that. What we can definitely look at is electric vehicles and some of those fleets that the delivery boys go out with. How is that going to change the cost structure? How are the different changes that are happening in the business models that are making us do things differently? So, for example, earlier, largely we were doing e-commerce, right? Very quickly, we have seen two different trends shape out. One is D2C, direct to consumer. The other one is social commerce. Talked about Misho. All of these things are happening at a very, very fast pace. What that means is the nature of the platform that is supposed to be, rewired to support these kind of changing business models, that need to be done at a very fast pace too. So how quickly can you make these architectural changes? How modular your stack is? How much you are reinvesting back into the technology platform to make sure that you stay agile? And you innovate daily. I mean, everybody talks about innovation. It's more incremental changes that you are doing to make sure that you never get into the legacy stage. Every day that passes by, your code base starts to become legacy, right? So how do you make sure that you're future-proofing your entire platform?
How do you make sure?
So you basically there are different trends that are continuing. There are different architectural changes that are happening all across the system. Modularization is happening at a very, very fast pace. The kind of services that you're leveraging, do you want to build everything? Do you want to buy and build? Do you want to go for managed services? Some of the things that probably will take a lot longer to build, why don't you go ahead and do a very clean service rollout within AWS space to make sure that you're able to harness that whole advantage. So a mix, it's a balance. It's a balance across all of these things to make sure that you're able to be very, very agile. You're able to address all of the different business levers that are getting there, and how you react to those. I think that's going to be the main
You're making
focus.
it sound very easy. I'm sure it's not that easy. Rajat, gaming is a highly competitive industry, and you always have to stay one step ahead of competition. So what is your plan in terms of what's next?
Yep, so it's again like we are currently predominantly into skill-based gaming there, right? But like we do have a very global U-Games studio that we've created, where we actually want to build games for a global market there. Like it's a kind of talent that we have hired to create that gaming studio where we have people from Australia, people from Europe, people from States, who have actually taken organizations into that kind of a journey there, with a very, very successful games there. So when you say that staying ahead in the cycle, it's about like, are you preparing yourself to say that what you can deliver at a pace, what you can deliver, what you want, and how do you come up with these innovative new games there? And the second aspect again comes back to this fundamental belief of science of gaming there. Because anything that you do, if you have science-backed or data-backed models to say that, is this the best experience that my consumers will get? That's what takes us to a very different level in terms of our positioning there. For example, like many times we focus on things saying that, how do I increase engagement? At Games 24/7, we actually have a full team focused on how do we detect overindulgence, whether it's in terms of time, whether it's in terms of money, and can we detect before it happens? And actually, we have models that detect that leads to an intervention where we throw up a survey for our customers, and we actually guide them to say that this seems to be on that territory where you need to set limits. There. And there it comes, like sometimes the business sense is, oh no, people should play more. But at the same time, like how do they play responsibly? How as a company we differentiate ourselves in that aspect using science is, to me, is a step in terms of preparing for future.
We're running out of time, so Fanish, just one last question, and I guess you're best placed to talk about it. In terms of security, right? Security is a hot topic now, given the number of vulnerabilities with the digital touch points that have emerged, and also in terms of data privacy. Can you talk about your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so security is quite very critical, not just for Coup, but overall in general for a healthy digital ecosystem. So at Coup, there have been various measures we have taken to kind of harden our security across not just application layer, but across the entire, if I have to say, the overall layer 7. So if I have to talk about application security, there's both multiple kinds of ways in which you can do. What we have done at Coup is we look at access privileges, where the data resides, how data is at rest, how data is in transit. And at the same time, there's also a lot of data abuse that can happen, like impersonation, right? So you need to kind of, it kind of falls more into the abuse rather than fraud. So a lot of ML models, there are a lot of services out of the box now, which is quite mature, where we ensure that all the bot traffic, all the different kind of injection attacks and a lot of other OWASP related issues are all filtered at the very top level. Then also if you go across the users who are on the actual platform, right? Especially on a social platform where there are a lot of public and eminent people, it's also a matter of trust, where they are actually speaking and they're giving an opinion. So it should be kind of respected to an extent where the identity of the users, the content of those users don't get, they don't have any specific issues. To ensure all that happens, there are various checks and balances that happen in our system. And to build all these things, right, both from normal good software development layer as well as also at the core mobile application layer, we have taken a lot of efforts to ensure these things happen in the right way. So at the end of the day, security, data privacy, as well as what content is actually consumed by different people, all that is very critical, and it has to have the right, it has to make the right noise there. Otherwise, it's going to be a big hodgepodge.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to leadership-led transformation, driving the innovation agenda of their companies. So thank you very much for joining us with your insights.